Today is Wednesday, November 11, 2020. I am joined today by my co-hosts, Carlos Ponce in Cuernavaca, Mexico. Hi, Carlos. Welcome back.
Thank you,
And
Tulio.
Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico. Hi, Kim.
Hey.
Good to see you again.
Likewise.
And we are joined today by our guest, Sridhar Ranganathan, who is joining us from Bangalore, India. So we've got 3 countries on the line today. I'm broadcasting from Southern California. Welcome to the show. Sridhar, we have an interesting topic for discussion today, and we're all looking forward to it. But before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit, get to know your company. Let's start with you first. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thanks, Tulio. Thanks, Carlos and Kim. It's wonderful to be here on DojoLIVE. I'm Sridhar. I'm calling in from Bangalore, India. I'm the co-founder of B2Brain, a startup I started with a friend of mine from college. I come from a small town, a small city in India called Coimbatore, which is down south. It's known for a lot of entrepreneurs who have built several engineering companies in Coimbatore and cotton mills, famous for its textiles. Even this shirt is from there. Very, very famous for it. I grew up there, went on to do engineering, and then in my first job, I was a ship manager, so I got to live life off of land in water. I sailed for about a year on 2 different ships. That was an incredible experience. Not often do we come across people who've been, living on ships and, doing stuff. After that, I went on to, do a bunch of other stuff. By chance, I ended up working at Zoho, which, is a very, very famous SaaS company based out of India. And that's where I learned the roots of product management. After that, I went on to work at Yahoo and then to InMobi, which is a very big mobile advertising network. From there, I ended up starting a company called Credibase, along with a friend of mine from college, who I met first day back in 91. And the product that the company builds is called B2Brain. Now, this is the product we, have gone to market with. A little bit more about myself. Tulio, thanks for the instructions to focus on my personal story. Over the years, I've had several different experiences of working in multiple scenarios. I've been a sportsman all through several years. I used to be a basketballer, and then I was on ships, which was like a fertile learning ground. And then now, as the founder of the company, I'm learning the ropes of what it is to do effective sales, having built products several years. And that's how this whole topic came about, because I can relate to each aspect of it and see how it is applied in my overall journey. From a personal standpoint, I'm married. My wife and I have 2 daughters, and we live here in Bangalore. The kids are going to, not going to school, rather sitting at home and studying. And they're all fast asleep now. It's 2:30 in the morning, and I'm here selling my story and selling what we do for a living.
So it's a shirt on the top and pajama bottoms down below.
No, that only happens here. Yay for girl dads, first of all, and then second, wow, we could have a show just talking about sailing, being on a ship for the entire year. I only know one other person personally who sailed the entire world over 2 years. He went on a sail ship across the entire world across 2 years. He was an architect. I was like, wow, he had a lot of interesting stories. So, welcome. Let's get to know B2Brain. Love to learn about what the company's all about. What are you guys doing? What kind of customers you're serving? What's your value proposition? Tell us a little bit about it.
All right. So in the past few quarters, I would say, maybe there has been a tremendous shift in the way sales happens in the B2B world. Okay. And the key, the key change that I've noticed is that sales teams want to be run more efficiently, more effectively, in a very cost economical manner, right? In B2B, you cannot rely on uh, pure consumer marketing channels like Google search and Facebook ads and so on. You need to have a sales force in order to, build a good revenue stream. Now, because of the availability of technology and tools like Zoom and collaboration software and CRM and lots of data, all of that has come into the industry. Because of that, companies are dramatically shifting their focus towards running sales predominantly as a inside sales operation rather than people going out, meeting customers, feet on street and direct sales and all of that, right? In this new world of inside sales being the dominant way of selling, the salesperson's life is heavily automated. They have several tools. They have CRM, they have sales engagement platforms like Outreach, Salesloft, and they have conversation intelligence platforms, Gong, Chorus, Wingman, so many others. But the one area where we saw is not being served well is the area around how do salespeople understand the context of their target accounts. Okay, what you routinely see is people running very vanilla, non-personalized messages to several prospects and then seeing very poor engagement rates with them. Instead, if they were to do a little bit more of research and understand what prospects are about and how to position themselves as solving a certain problem, life would be much better for them. The challenge they face in wanting to do that is, they typically have like 50, 100, 150 accounts to chase. And doing research for so many such accounts will consume more than 1 to 2 weeks every month of their time. So B2 Brain was designed to solve for this problem of account research. And what it does is it analyzes millions of documents of public data about your target account, matches that with the value proposition of the product or service you're building or you want to sell, and gives you the right contextual information about your target account along with relevant leads that you must pursue. So let's say you're selling a security software to a company. If you get to know that this company has been hiring senior security professionals and has had challenges with their perimeter security issues or things like that, then as a security vendor, you will go and position yourself smartly with the context that they are ramping up their leadership and they have had certain problems. So your software can help solve the problem and make the leadership more successful, right? That's the nature of what B2 Brain does. We want it to be like the brain that can do a lot of thinking and a lot of account research for the salesperson, so the salesperson can focus on what they do best, which is selling.
Well, I'm personally interested to learn a lot more because in the past 2 decades leading sales and marketing organizations, one of the investments I've always made is in a researcher. And when I joined Nearsoft, now in Cora, one of the first things that we focused was let's get a researcher that can help us with this information because it is a full-time job getting that context. But I want to learn more about how you guys are automating that. Let's go right into the topic. Carlos, what's the topic for today? It's very appropriate for the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tulio. Thanks, Sridhar, for being with us. Today, Tulio, we're going to be speaking, the topic is stories from sports to ships to sales. So it doesn't get any more intriguing than that. So it's, in other words, well, we're going to be discussing the reason why knowing your terrain gives you an unfair advantage. Hey, I'm all for unfair advantages. So first question is, Sridhar, why did you choose this particular topic in the first place? Let's start with that.
All right. So when we started talking a few days ago, I was thinking of, I love stories. And like you guys say, everybody loves stories, right? I'm not here to make a product pitch, or pitches get boring after a while. But the baseball pitches or the cricket pitch is very interesting,
Mhm.
right? Unlike a sales pitch. So I was looking for what would be interesting enough for people to listen to. And the best stories are those that are told from personal experience. When I look back at my own entrepreneurial journey over the past few years, and the journey of having worked at high growth companies previous to that, and having come into software technology industry almost by accident, I would say, right? And what better place to look back and experience that accident than a place like Zoho. Okay, Zoho, when I worked there, used to be called AdventNet, and they were making network management software. And I was a ship manager. I came and joined them as a project manager, and over the first few months transitioned to become a product manager because the company was making a switch to actually building products and calling product teams. This was back in 2001, right? When that's like 2 decades ago, when software as a service was at its infancy, right? And I used to tell people, as a ship manager, my job was to make sure ships do not stay in the port for longer than 24 hours. I used to manage a few ships because if it stays for longer than 24 hours, you have to pay the port a lot more fee. So my job was to make sure the ships are released faster, okay? And they have to be sailing out at sea. Then when I moved to Zoho, I was in charge of getting products out of the door, right? So I was in charge of shipping releases. So I used to tell, I moved from releasing ships to shipping releases, right? Okay. So that was the thing. So a lot of my experience has been very enriched by the experience out at sea and managing ships. So if you ask my friends, they'll tell you that every fourth or fifth sentence that I talk about has some connection with the sea and the ship and something that we did there.
Right. I love the analogy of just having to ship faster, whether that's an actual ship carrying one physical product from one location to another, or shipping a release like in software. And I think there's a lot of lessons that you probably have that overlap there. One of the things that we're talking about here is contact, right? And no matter where we are, making those personal relationships and getting that context is what's always going to make a really strong difference between one and the other, right? And I understand that's what's going on here with B2 Brain. You mentioned providing that context on the company level.
Yes.
But are you also able to provide that same context on the actual individual or contact level? Like the person that I'm looking to speak to, who is my key persona and what can I know about them to actually, kind of start forming this pseudo relationship before we start selling? Like, how important is that? And is your product also able to provide that information?
That's an excellent question, Kim. So I look at context about your target account like a continuum, right? There is a part about the account or the company itself, which is important. There's something going on in the company that makes your product interesting for them or not. Okay, either of them is important, right? Now, the second question is, if something's going on, everything in a company is done by people like you and me. Okay, so one of the founding, beliefs or thoughts that me and my co-founder Karthik had when we started the company was, companies are built by people like you and me. Okay, you might say B2B, but it's people to people ultimately, right? Mm-hmm. So if something's going on in the company, because the executives or the key people responsible for that project or that initiative or whatever it is are so tightly tied to the outcomes of the project, you start with the project or the plan or the initiative as the context. but quickly you want to figure out something's going on. So who do I go and speak to? That's your next question, right? Who are the right people? Oftentimes we're able to actually identify here are the most likely set of people that are associated with this particular context. Okay.
Which is great, but I think the question, if I could riff on it a little bit, is so for example, right, you can identify all the business context behind what's going on and what the needs are, but you may not know that the individual who's perhaps the decision maker has one of two things going on right now. One, they just lost a loved one. They're a little distracted from the business objectives right now. Or two, their kid just graduated college with honor, right? So their own personal context is going to be, complete opposite, pole opposing views, or their content is going to be either sad or extremely happy. So can I get the information to not only help me identify where the needs are, who the right people are, but is it the right time to go talk to these people based on what's going on in their personal life? So does it also tie in other insights such as that, or is that like a next step for the product?
Okay, that's quite interesting. Today, as we speak, that is still the next step for us. It's not a problem we solve for today, but you've actually, shown light on a very important problem, which is that beyond a company's objective, a person might have their own personal situations to kind of take care of, and that's probably more aggravated in today's world, right? We're all cocooned and getting stuck within our houses and within the small spaces that we are in, and obviously we think and work differently when we are completely kept away from normal life. So that's a problem. I know if we had a good way to solve for it, it'll be very powerful, no doubt about it. B2 Brain in today's version or the avatar that we have does not solve for that problem, because the first problem that we have taken, which is getting the context of an account itself, is a fairly large problem. Just to give you a sense of the magnitude, right? So we have a bunch of customers who use us, companies like Four Kites and Capillary, and a bunch of mid-sized businesses that are using us fairly heavily. And even at this small scale, like we have just started off, launched the product in mid-April and got to the market and so on. We are today indexing and analyzing a few 100 million documents across over 800,000 sources, public web sources. Okay, and that is just to solve the account level context problem. But the path for how we see people using us more and more and increasingly with a higher level of engagement is when they get to identify increasing amounts of prospect level intelligence in addition to the account level information and context. So it's certainly something that we see addressing as we go down the roadmap.
Being the storyteller that you are, could you give us, obviously with protecting privacy issues, but a use case and a story of, now that I have this information, what am I doing with it? And what do I do with it, not only in an effective way, but an efficient way? How would your actual users use your information? Do you have any tips or suggestions of what's next now that I have this in my hands or on my screen?
Oh yeah, of course. So let's take Kim, you want to go and prospect with a particular company, okay, a retailer in Midwest US. Okay, they're expanding their curbside pickup team, and they think that's a big part of their business line. Now you got the information and you provide, let's say, digital transformation services for the retail industry, right? You got to place both your value proposition and the company, because that's one of our unique differentiators. right? We bridge the context of the company and your value proposition. That's how you become more effective. Okay. The moment you know they are investing behind curbside pickup, you can start looking at new use cases. The teams that are going to deliver on the curbside pickup have to be trained. Okay, they have to be armed and equipped with newer kinds of applications that make sure that the new way of the delivery channel is being effective enough. All right, which is essentially a very big part of how they'll have to digitally transform themselves from how they are doing business today. Okay, they'll have to have new people, new teams formed with a focus on making that part of their delivery channel more effective. How do you handle returns? How do you handle damages? How do you handle like the entire retail workflow towards the consumer? Okay, now when you know here are the 4 or 5 key people in that company who are taking charge of the project or are in some way driving it, you can go back and start your conversation with them at a point where they understand you're coming armed with very thoughtful research about their world. You're not starting by saying, let's do digital transformation. You're starting by saying, let's make sure your your delivery channel is very effective. Let's make sure the common problems faced by companies, which are these 2 or 3, are not being faced by you again, because you don't have time to do all the mistakes that others have also done. You have to look at doing new mistakes.
So right? In essence, we as SDRs become the creepy Google ad that pops up in Facebook.
So it's interesting you say that.
You heard what I was saying? Yeah.
It's interesting you say that. So here's something that I have noticed several times. When it is a personal thing, we feel it's creepy. When it is a company thing, we feel it's extremely valuable. I guess it's just human nature. So you're not going and telling them, hey, looks like you're in a bad mood, your coffee was bad, so here is a different cookie to kind of make up for it. You're not saying that. You're saying, look, your quota for the next quarter is residing on getting this whole thing done properly and efficiently, right? Wouldn't you want to take help from someone who's knowledgeable about your world and knowledgeable about the problems, right?
But if you can throw in the cookie, that'll help too, right?
Of course it'll help.
Kim, I think Carlos has a question. He's got a yellow card for Kim. Sports yellow card. Go ahead. I have a question. Nice. This is the new raise your hand approach. Go ahead.
This will get Kim's attention. She doesn't read the chat box.
The little private chat we have here.
I read them. I just disregard them.
You just ignore it. Okay, you're entitled to it. Okay, so listen. Sridhar, I have a question. Well, as you know, Kim and I are both involved in sales development. So my question is, you mentioned something that is that I find intriguing on the landing page for the show. Actually, you mentioned the concept of contextual intelligence. So for those who are watching, it might not have a clear understanding of what contextual intelligence is. Would you mind elaborating a little bit and why you think this is important?
Sure. All right. So when you look at information about a company, there are broadly 2 kinds of information. Okay. Information that is about what business the company is in, what industry they are in, where are they located, how many people are there, what sort of revenue numbers did they make last year, and so on and so forth. These things change at reasonably slower frequencies. Okay, a company that's a 10,000 people company is going to be a 10,000 people company for the next 3 months at least. Okay, they may have added 50 and let go of 50 or 100 or something of that sort, right? And lots of other such information that they have, you can say they are reasonably static. And then there are information that is fairly dynamic. Okay, something took place because of which the industry structure of that company, where the company is operating, has changed. A big player went and bought the second best guy. Okay, so now this company is charting out new business plans. Okay, or they just had to find a replacement for a key leadership role, or a bunch of new people have come onto the executive team, right? Or in their last quarterly earnings, they found that their operating cash flow was not sufficient. So they are charting out new plans to make sure their operational efficiency is going up, and that becomes a strategic priority. Okay. Or they found that the supply chain, which was supplying stuff to their business in a certain country and was being produced from some other country, has undergone a disruption. Maybe they had a supply chain that was going through the port of Hong Kong. Okay, and Hong Kong had some disruption. Or there was something about the economy in China which is not conducive for what they're doing in a different place. So these are things that are constantly changing. Okay, these are dynamic, right? Now, for your business, depending on what product or service you are selling, some of this information might be interesting and might be very relevant. Some may not be relevant. Okay, you're focused on curbside pickup and delivery digital transformation. Supply chain in China may not make much difference. But if you're focused on supply chain visibility, supply chain in China is like absolutely important. Okay. If you're focused on selling HR software, supply chain in China may not matter at all for you. Okay. Because the context in which you are selling, this information might be or might not be useful. So our unique value proposition or the differentiation is that we marry the context of what's going on with your business and the product or service you're selling. So our software is able to identify if you are selling product X or service Y, something happening about your target account, whether that is important to you or not. If you put a manual researcher to do this job, that's what they will look for. Right? If you put a Google alert doesn't care.
You're matching up to make sure it's an ICP, not just getting in the context for the sake of context.
Exactly.
This is great. We're coming up on time, Sridhar. It's been interesting speaking to you. By the way, we have a history of asking the kind of questions that trigger guests to think about new roadmap opportunities. We think the last time we did that, we spoke to a company who was in the fashion business, and we said, your platform could be something you license to other fashion houses.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're developing a product and licensing it. So
and he was like, really interesting. Never thought of it.
Well, that's what you get when you interview 300 plus CEOs over a few years. You start to see patterns. You ask questions to make see some patterns too. So hopefully that'll give you some tips on the next phase of context. Is we want to know more personal information about executives, not just their business information. But moving on as we're wrapping up from sports to being on a ship for a year, learning a lot about lessons that you've applied to your life and business from that, and learning about sales and building a business. Any words of wisdom you'd like to share for those individuals who may be sitting on the fence about taking a risk of becoming an entrepreneur, building a business, or taking an idea forward, looking for those gaps in the marketplace? What words of advice would you have for them, for those perhaps sitting on the fence?
All right. Suddenly makes me feel more important than I am, but that's fine. I'll make it.
That's not true. Context makes everyone important.
Wonderful. Kim, you got it. You guys should probably rename this show as DojoLIVE, Get More Mojo or something. So from my own experience, here's what I would say. It's very important to stay put. Okay. It's all right to change your course. Your first idea is never probably going to be the one that will, pay off. Right. But it's very important to stay put. The second thing I would say is let the thought of going on your own and, building something that will last grow onto you. Don't force it. Okay. It's almost like, break an egg and hold it in your hand, right? It's very slippery. You try to hold it too tight, it completely slips. Okay. If you don't give it enough support, it'll fall off. You just have to give it enough support to say, look, I'm not going to force you to do this. Let the idea grow onto you. Okay. That period is very important, because the more your brain soaks up the thought of doing it, the longer you'll actually go. Okay. That's the second, I would say. The third is, end of the day, listen to your heart. It'll tell you whether you're okay or you're not okay.
Brilliant. Great
Everything
words
else
of advice. Love it.
hopefully is helpful. Yeah.
Well, Sridhar, we're up on time. It's been a pleasure to have you. We know it's quite late there. We hope you either have a great day or get some rest, whatever is up next for you. We've appreciated having you on here. We'll make sure we put the information about B2Brain on the landing page for those interested in learning more. It's certainly something that we're going to look into as well. Every company, especially now, needs more insights, more intelligence to help make their inside sales or their sales executive, everybody's inside sales right now, more intelligent and make more actionable decisions based on those intelligence. Carlos, what do we got coming up? We have one more show tomorrow, Thursday?
Yes, Tulio. Tomorrow we're going to be speaking with, with Ann Cheng, the founder of Supercharge Labs, which is a platform that deals specifically with their motto is redefining sales to understanding purchasing behaviors and the psychology behind it. So that's what they do at Supercharge Labs, and the topic is going to be, can artificial intelligence be ethical? And can we create a sustain conscious technology? So that's the tagline. The topic is the social dilemma of behavioral technology: utopia or dystopia. There you have
Very
it.
interesting. Now, I think tomorrow it's at 3 p.m. Pacific, right? Not our usual 1 p.m. with Ann?
No, it's actually no, it's actually at 1 p.m. Pacific. It's just the regular time.
Regular time. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a glitch that we encountered earlier today too, Lou. But
On
it's
the
the same
calendar.
time.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
but it's same time, 1 p.m. Pacific, right here on DojoLIVE, people.
See you all back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Till then, stay safe.
Stick with
Thank
us.
you so much for
Sridhar.
having me. Thank you.
Stick around, Sridhar.